Okay, so leading beautifully into our next session there, and Tia beautifully mentioned brave. We've been championing that word, and we've been working alongside the Marketing Society quite heavily over the last couple of years, which is their mantra and their cause. So you're going to need some of those stressful mind techniques in a moment, I think, because some of you will need to take a deep breath as we're about to have an uncomfortable conversation. It's going to be a no-hold-bars. It's going to be between a brand and the Marketing Society. So without further ado, please let me welcome to the stage Gemma Greaves, CEO of the Marketing Society, and Mitch Oliver, Global Corporate Brand and Purpose Director for Mars. Yes, come on.
Hello, morning.
Hello, good morning. This is very exciting. I feel like we have to swing.
Yep.
Otherwise, people are going to see my ass. Well, actually, we've got a chair, so it's okay. Brilliant. I'm not sure about uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable getting up on that catwalk, isn't it? I mean, that's uncomfortable.
It is my first and probably only time on a catwalk. Yep.
Yeah. Jeremy said to us last night, will you do a catwalk strut? And I think with a bit of alcohol, we were going, well, maybe. And then we both kind of confessed, you're a wobbler and I'm a waddler. So we thought perhaps not.
I did wonder if I said 10 times to the mirror to myself, you need to lose a stone in weight, whether it would work. So I'm prepared to give it a go anyway.
Yeah, it's brave actually going after Tia, really, isn't it? I mean, she was awesome.
It was
she was
excellent.
Brilliant. So we're going to have a conversation. We're not, usually one person would be interviewing. We've decided to do it a bit differently, where we're just going to talk and ask each other questions and try and get a bit uncomfortable. Can we do that? Have a comfortable space to get a bit uncomfortable. So given that everything's about brave and it's something that we all passionately believe in, and I've been inspired hugely by this conference. It's been amazing, this festival, and Jez and his team. Why is being braver so critical for our industry, Mitch?
It's a bit weird, this, isn't it? Because I feel like I've got my back to the audience. I'm going to stand while I answer some of the questions, if that's...
Oh, wow. Do you want me to stand too?
I don't know, it's up to you.
I'll fall over.
I suppose, so I've got the most complicated job title I know. Basically, I work in marketing. And I've worked in marketing for 23 years for Mars, and I love it. So I love my job. I'm one of the luckiest people. But the reason we need to be brave, it has changed. If we're not brave, we will be obsolete. And I am 100% convinced of that. There's a film, actually, I always think of this film. I don't know if I've told you this. It's a really naff film called The Intern with Robert De Niro.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Has anyone seen it? And I was watching it on the plane, because I watch all my guilty pleasure films on the plane and then pretend I like intellectual films at home. And he's an intern, but he's a man of a certain age who goes back to a warehouse building where Anne Hathaway, I think it is a young woman who is setting up an internet clothing business. And I can't remember exactly, but the building is basically the location where he was, I think, a logistics director or something for what was the equivalent of the Yellow Pages. So it's where they stored the Yellow Pages. And I just had a moment watching that of thinking, that could be me one day. I could be going back and people going, do you remember they used to make 60-second ads, put them on television? They used to sit in meeting rooms and talk for half an hour about what colour dress the lady would be wearing in the ad or not. And it's changing at such a pace that we just can't afford not to be brave and to make some courageous decisions. And the other reason why it's brave, from my point of view, is because we don't know if it's going to work or not. So a lot of the stuff that was being presented, that's been shared, we've got no idea. We're not in that wonderful kind of management consultancy world where we've got ROI measures, which at Mars, trust me, we love our ROI measures. We're just going to have a punt.
Slightly uncomfortable. I hate acronyms.
Sorry, return on investment.
We know what ROI means, but let's try and avoid acronyms in this
So anyway, so from my point of view, it is not even an option. We have to be. But I'm intrigued about why I know the Marketing Society have bravery as their big agenda. Where did that come from?
So I loved your answer there. That's brilliant. Anne Hathaway just reminds me, a great film. There's so much bravery you can get from films, actually. Where the brave agenda came from, our purpose is to inspire bolder marketing leadership. And when I was asked to be chief executive, on maternity leave, actually, singing nursery rhymes in the morning, beginning to think maybe I'm good for going for nice lunches and having, you know, that kind of lifestyle, which quite frankly would be very nice, and obviously we do a bit of that in our industry anyway. My boss at the time, Hugh Burkett, a wonderful man, we had lunch and he said to me, I want you to be my successor, and you know, the time's right. And I was on maternity leave, I'd had my baby 2 months ago, I was not in that space at all, but something felt right. And then went through it like 6-9 months of, did I actually say yes to this? And then obviously there had to be interviews with the board and governance. It wasn't as simple as Hugh saying, I want you to do the job. And so through that process, I started then having a bit of a crisis of confidence in terms of, you know, can I actually do this? You know, Hugh is an impressive man, great legacy, wonderful human being. He's got real presence, and I thought, gosh, he's very polished. A little bit posh. I know I'm posh, but he's posher. I'm joking, clearly not. And I thought, if I'm going to do this thing, do I do it his way or do I do it my way? And obviously I went with the latter, and I felt very brave, very vulnerable, very exposed in such a public way, stepping into really large shoes. He's actually got quite small feet, but, you know, metaphorically, very large shoes. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to be brave, then I'm going to encourage others to be brave. And that's now taken off on a global scale, and we're having brave conversations all around the world about the subjects that really matter. And people will say, well, what does brave mean? And I think it's that thing where everyone has a different interpretation. But for me, it's what I learned. My biggest learning is that actually it's okay to be myself. Yeah. And as Caroline said yesterday, the wonderful Caroline, who I have to give her a mention because she was epic, wasn't she? I mean, so many people were, see Sam there, and Sam was epic as well. But, you know, she talks about being yourself, like all the great stuff that she's overcome. And I think that for me is a massive part of being brave, being yourself, and then taking yourself out your comfort zone every day, just small things that make the difference. And I think it's the small things and thinking big that can allow you to be brave and just go for it and not have the boundaries that our industry and companies can give us. That's where it came from.
And I think that the bravest thing you can do in the workplace is be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting how that sounds like a really naff thing to say and like something you'd write on a greeting card or whatever, which are also obsolete. But sometimes it is the little things. So I've got a thing about my shoes. So I'm on a stage, I should be wearing heels, I think, mentally. I'm 45 years old. I'm raised in a business environment where if you're doing a big presentation, you know, you wear heels. And just in the last year, so, you know, that growth mindset idea of, you know, the journey's never over, you're constantly at it, I've thought, I don't want to wear heels all the time. No. I like wearing flats. But it's a really silly thing. I can be really brave and stand up on the stage in front of lots of people, but it doesn't feel as brave inside as it does the last month of me wearing flat shoes to big events. And that sounds so stupid. So for different people, I think, what's brave? And then when I do it and you realise, you know, funnily enough, the world doesn't fall apart, and frankly, most people haven't even noticed, it's in your own head. And it gives you confidence in other ways. So sometimes it's the big presentation. Sometimes it's the tiniest things that you do. Yeah,
I mean, for me, one of the things, I remember someone saying to me when I said, look, I want to push this and go brave, and I got a couple of my buddies to make a film to bring Brave to life, to sell it to my board, who, my old board, you're on my board now, so I'd say all nice things about my board, of course. But, you know, it's a tough bunch to sell something through to, so I asked them to create a film. And I said, I want you to create a film like bringing Brave to life. And they said, the two creative directors, they said, you know, this isn't brave, our industry is not brave. What's brave is a nurse or a doctor or a soldier. And I said, no, for me, brave is the small things every day. For me, it's in a room where everyone agrees. Everyone is, you know, absolutely agreeing. You're sitting there thinking, I don't agree. It's being able to say, actually, I don't agree, or I don't get it when people talk the marketing language of jargon that seems to be... And
I did that in a board meeting recently. And you know when you're sitting there and in your head you're going, I don't agree with this. And in fact, I was angry. And I have to say, I'd just like to say, I've noticed the number of women that have been presenting and on the stage, and I applaud the Festival of Marketing for making sure there's good representation. We can go further in other areas.
Festival of Media, my love.
Festival
That's a
of
different
Media,
event.
different
Not as good. No,
we can go not as good. We can go further in representation, but at least we're doing one thing right. But in a meeting room in the board, and I get emotional. So I think I've spoken to you about this. Yeah. And bringing my emotional self to work is part of the journey that I've been on. Anyway, I was getting really angry. In my head, I was going, you don't agree, you don't agree. And I was having a whole conversation in my head, nothing out loud. Everyone was just nodding violently about this proposal, and I was going, and it was about people, so I was getting really personally impacted by it. I then realised, I then said something, I can't remember what I said, but I said, basically, I really can't cope with this. I really don't agree with this. And someone came back, and I kept arguing. And then I got so angry, I didn't know what to do, but I walked out of the room. I have never walked out of a board meeting in my life. I then ended up in the ladies, thinking, what do I do now? I've walked out. So I texted my mate, Rez, who's the VP for sales, who was in the room, who's a good friend at work, and said, I've just walked out of the room. What do I do now? I think that's reckless, possibly, not brave. How do I come back in? But I went back in, and I said, look, that was probably inappropriate. What that was is that meant I really care about this issue. I've calmed down a bit now. So take the emotional reaction as me caring, and now let me try and explain why I'm like that. And it was fine. Again, the world didn't fall apart. Yeah. You know, the team... It's real. You know, some people were not happy with the way I behaved. Other people applauded it and said, we think you were probably feeling what some of the rest of us in the room were feeling. So I think also bringing, you know, we are wonderfully chaotic, diverse people, you know. We're emotional. You know, some of us cry, some of us get angry. You know, I think this corporate world, we talk a lot about the change that's going on in society from a digital point of view, but I think there is another massive trend in society and in corporations that's going on about embracing our full emotional selves as well, and our intuition as well as our rational thought to the... was it the not left and right? What were they?
We just learnt it a second ago.
Yes, but it's gone out of my head.
Yeah, I remember the hand thing more than anything.
Okay. Anyway, that's my
left brain. So you've just touched on something there that I think is really important and something that we actually where we met when we hosted. We sort of knew each other in the industry, but hadn't actually met. And the Marketing Society hosted an event around mental health, and it was before the marathon, it was before the Royals, it was before, you know, people were really kind of bringing it to the fore, and definitely in our industry it hadn't happened. And it was because a wonderful man, Robin White, said to me, you know, I'm bipolar. Robin White, the brilliant man who wears incredible suits. He said, I'm bipolar, and I'm sick of it being seen as negative, because actually it's positive for me, and it's when I have my best ideas, and I shouldn't have to hide it. So I was like, brilliant, let's do an event, and let's uncover that. And then actually Jeremy introduced me to Hussein Manwar, the brilliant spoken word artist, who did the largest ever mental health lesson in schools, like you shouldn't be ashamed. And through that journey where we created a very comfortable space to have a very uncomfortable conversation. You know, the biggest learning that came out of that is it's okay not to be okay. And actually, how do we create that safe space for people to be able to do that? So it's great to be yourself, but actually, you should be able to say, I'm having a shit day, you know. And
how do you create that in your office? What do you do?
Oh gosh, we do loads of things. So Ruby White spoke for us, and she said it's okay not to be okay. So as much as I'd like to coin that as my own, I have to give her props for that. And actually, it starts with the small things. So it's having that space where people feel that they can be themselves and truly be themselves, not be a different version of themselves. Where if I, as the leader, walk in and go, I'm having a crap morning, give me a few minutes, just need a coffee, not trying to be arsey, then people go, oh, she's normal, she's human. So I think if you create that human space and you do that yourself as a leader and encourage that, I think that's the first thing. But I think it's also, you know, calling it out. And what we did is we did a thing where, and it came from the Ruby Wax event where we wanted to do something for our members, but where we said, right, what can all of us do to remove the stigma, this invisible that should be more visible, the stigma around mental health and loads of other things that Sam spoke about yesterday and Caroline around disability, etc. You know, if we can if we as a company or with our members, get everybody to say, what is the one thing you can do personally to create that safe space for others? That's awesome. So actually you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be too intimidating, because a lot of this does feel intimidating. So what we did is we put it on Post-it notes in the office. And then someone took it down, put it in a spreadsheet, and put it on the website. And I was like, no, in this digital world, I'm a bit of a Luddite. Those of you who know me in the room, which is a few, I'm a self-confessed Luddite. And sometimes I just think visual and touch and feel is so much better. So on these Post-it notes, in our own writing, we all said the small things we would do. And one of my team, which was brilliant, said, I'm going to be honest about the state of my head. And I just loved it. Instead of calling in sick on a Monday morning, which he was prone to doing, instead he's going to be honest with his team more and more. And I think we can all do things like that. What do you do? What do you do, Mitch?
Well, to be honest, I think it's the same. I think being honest about your own vulnerabilities is the single most powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't think even it's just as a leader, as a team member, saying you're having a bad day, talking about your family. Some of you will know I have a close member of my family who suffers from depression, another who is coming through anorexia. These are, and if you start talking to people and having that conversation, I guarantee you, it happened at dinner last night, within 2 seconds, you'll find someone else who has experienced something similar. We all have something that we are uncomfortable about or struggling with, or we know someone very close to us and we don't know how to deal with it. So, I hate small talk. So I'm bored of industry dinners.
Can I say what you said to me one of the first times I met you? So Mitch pretty much avoided industry events, and I think you thought the society was a bit stuffy and all that kind of stuff. And to be fair, years ago we were. And I remember you saying, I think of industry events, those dinners, those black tie dinners where someone sits next to you and talks about the size of their very large car.
Oh, God. And it's just that ego thing up there.
Has anyone heard that?
Don't get me wrong, I've got an ego. I wouldn't be sitting up here if I didn't. But they're so dull and so boring, and life is so short. And I'd much rather be at home with my family than sat in a posh hotel talking shit.
Yeah.
But
you did that last night. So
I tried to be real. I tried to be real.
But she did that last night. You'd only just met the people that we were with, and we were with Caroline. She's my new, might be a slight girl crush if I admit that. And we were all together, and you said, do you know what? In interest of being real, I'm just going to share. I've had a shit, and I loved it. Yeah. And actually, the conversation just went into a different place, didn't it?
But the other thing I think as a leader or as a person in business that we can do that. But we have a massive opportunity. So you will know this is my passion. Probably the bravest thing I've ever do is I have to be careful what's being written down. So just treat this with respect, anyone who's writing or recording. Yeah. The bravest thing I've ever done is try to persuade Mars, which is sometimes is very progressive in some ways, but quite conscious of its reputation in others, to make an advert for little wobbly Maltesers balls, comparing them to a male orgasm, in a film, in an advert about featuring women living with disability. And it was the bravest thing I've ever done. I just did it very last minute, so they didn't have very long to think about it. And I said very loudly, and we've won £1 million. That I said that loudly, and then the advert said this. But we've won £1 million. But once we've done that, so I think we can use the content as well to be brave. Yes. Because what that said is, obviously, I didn't expect any of this, but I then had members of my team who would suddenly use the gender pronoun of their partner who had never done that before. We made an advert about women living with disability and Maltesers. It's got nothing to do with LGBTQI issues or anything, but the intersectionality meant, okay, we're that kind of business, we're that kind of team, we're that kind of company. I had someone who was in my team, I had no idea. So first of all, imagine the layer of stress someone has to go to remember not to use the gender pronoun of their partner or even their first name. Yeah. Imagine the conscious energy that's being taken up by that, rather than frankly doing the job that we hope they'll be brilliant at. I had another member of my team who is dyslexic. I had no idea. And so her whole time in meetings, recording the meeting under the table on her phone because she couldn't take the notes quickly enough, then going home in the evening, listening to the recording and writing out what the key points were and the actions are. I've worked with this woman and for years and had no idea. So, and then the stories start to, it starts to become, I don't know, it's wonderful. It's like this ripple effect, this positive butterfly effect, if you like, from one thing that happens over here to people thinking it's okay.
But she shouldn't need to hide it. So we did an event recently in London on neurodiversity.
Yeah.
So same kind of format. We do this fishbowl format where the audience become the content, and we get involved in a really sticky conversation. And actually, a friend of mine who runs the Dots, Pip Jameson, she's wonderful. She on her sign-off it says delightfully dyslexic, excuse typos, which is absolutely brilliant. So I asked her to speak for a friend, Mark Evans of Direct Line, who wanted someone high profile that had dyslexia. She'd never spoken about it before, but she did for him because he wanted her to, and I connected them. And she said, you know, I now see it as a superpower. And we sat there and we did this event, neurodiversity, and we talked about autism. We had this amazing guy from Red Brick Road who's autistic get up and speak and talk about, you know, his journey, but also, you know, how Red Brick Road had believed in him, and now he's doing finance and creative, which I think is just awesome. And the bravery to stand up there and do that was brilliant. And next to me, one of my team said, Gem, you do know I'm dyslexic? And I was like, no. Because people feel they've got to hide it. And I'm guilty of that. I just thought she was really bad at spelling. I'm going to call it out there. I used to go, oh, God, another typo. But now I know that. It changes the narrative. So how can we make the invisible visible? How can we say it's okay for people to do that?
How do you justify the amount of energy that you're putting into this journey from the Marketing Society point of view? Apart from the alcohol. How do you bring it back to business? How do you make it something that people that is going to be meaningful in a corporate world, and not just, you know, you're not a mental health charity. So
for me, we're bigger than marketing, and I don't mean the society, I mean us as an industry. You know, we have an opportunity, but not just an opportunity, a responsibility, given we are the voice of the customer, given the influence we have in the organisation, given the reach that we have to millions and millions of billions of people. We have a responsibility to not just talk, but start to make change. And you said it to me once, you know, having an impact, but an impact at scale. Yeah. And I've stolen that as well. I use that all the time. But I credit you for that as well. But that drives me, because I know we can have a difference. I was talking to Sam last night. I can see her there, and I'm sure she'll probably get involved in the conversation in a sec. We will go out for conversations. But the stuff she's doing in the disability sector, like we've got an opportunity to change lives. Yeah. And I do believe that's one small step at a time. And if we don't do that, then what are we here for? What's our legacy? So I think, do you know, and actually someone made me quite cross in India. I was on TV in India, and please don't Google it. I've just realised I'm saying this in front of a large crowd because it was such an unflattering angle, and it was not my best moment. But he said to me, he said, everything you're talking about marketing, he said, that's the role of the CEO, that's not the role of the CMO. And I was like, well, that's crap. I don't know if I said that on TV, but I was like, oh, I disagree. He was like, in India, marketing's about selling soaps and shampoos. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, okay. And he was like, you're not going to change that. And I was like, yes, we are. One small step at a time. And one of the guys in India who's on my board, because we have a hub in India, he said that what he did is, in his marketing, he's a big bank, and in India, obviously, the dowry is saved up for the female, and the son has his parents saved for the education. So in the advertising, he just swapped that round. That's powerful, and that can change. Yeah. And actually, I cited you. I don't want to embarrass you, but they said, you know, who's someone that is a marketer that's leading the way and doing some inspirational stuff. And I was like, Mitch and her team, and the stuff you did with the Maltesers and the stuff you continue to do.
Well, and anyone who wants to know about the Unstereotype Alliance, then do sign up, look it up. It's the United Nations, actually, Unilever, who...
You involved in the United Nations?
I may have been to the United Nations a couple of weeks ago.
She might have mentioned that a couple of times.
And like my entire family have seen photos and Twitter feeds. I'm normally quite quiet on social media, but I was so excited. But there's some amazing work being done about the impact, well, the negative impact that stereotyping in the content that we produce and in our jobs that we put on air and how we put it on air, not just of women, but the negative stereotyping of men as well. We typically show, you know, men as being, you know, a bit useless when it comes to childcare and home things. That's not helpful to either men or women in the world, and certainly to young women. If you talk to the United Nations of young women in developing countries, then some of these negative portrayals through all content, so it's also films, etc., but advertising is massive, and we can change that, so that's my little plug. I'll talk a bit about that later, actually.
We can change it through advertising, but also we can change, we did an event on gender the other day, didn't we? And it got quite uncomfortable. There's probably a couple of people here that might have been there. It was with Sue Uniman, who's amazing, from MediaCom, and myself and the rest of the room. And we got quite uncomfortable because there was quite a lot of kind of quite big generalisations about gender and it felt quite polarising in a room, as opposed to we've got an opportunity to change this together and have those small conversations.
I think the other thing, and then maybe we could get.
I think we should get some questions. Yeah,
I
don't know what timing.
The other thing I'd say about it, it's not just about doing something that's good, this stuff for the world, because there is a huge amount of untapped talent of people who wouldn't think of applying for jobs in industries that we work in because they don't think it's the kind of place for them, and a huge amount of untapped potential of people in businesses who are not operating fully because they're spending their energy trying to deal with all the other shit or hide their sexuality or hide their personality in some way, shape or form. So. And lastly, that anyone who's involved in any graduate recruitment or any recruitment will know that businesses or that act with purpose, we'll talk about purpose later, or with authenticity or with integrity and with values, and who are playing a role in this space, because with all the shit that's going on in the world, the trust in governments is just reducing, and the role, therefore, of businesses is becoming more important. Yeah. So in the massive fight for talent that all of you will know that's happening out there, this is a massive opportunity as well to be the kind of business that the best kind of people want to work for.
And we're not the best at marketing.
No.
I mean, it's something that we've been talking about. But as well as the industry and as well as brands, we've also got an opportunity as people to be role models
absolutely.
As well. And that's what I learned so much at the event the other day. And again, responsibility as role models to the future. So we're really aware questions. Who wants to ask us some questions means I can swing. And could we keep them quite short so we can get a couple in? So in the style of a tweet. Sam, I'm looking at you. You've got to ask a question. Oh, we've got one here. Hello. Hi. Met last night, didn't we? Yeah, say your name.
I'm Eliana from Market Makers.
Nice to meet you.
This is quite a broad question, but I guess there's been a lot of talk on cost cutting and accountability and improving your margins. So as a marketer, in terms of taking brave risks, how do you strike that balance between cost efficiency and maintaining innovation?
That's an excellent question. Really we ring fence. We very, very practically, I agreed with the board that we would ring fence. So last year, in my previous role was UK VP for marketing, and for anyone who worked with the UK last year in the media industry, our budgets were cut massively as a consequence of currency, the unexpected consequence of the Brexit vote, and something else that's momentarily gone out of my mind. But so what we did is I negotiated that I would have 2/3 of the budget that would be done on proven. In fact, Mark Zander may be in the room. He and I worked together on this. He works for Tees now. Proven, effective media, but that we would have 1/3 of the budget that would be totally unproven, and that would be the ring-fenced bit of the budget. So if there were further budget cuts that had to happen in the year, they would come from the proven media. And that was by sharing this sort of the burning platform for change, because that proven media would be great in this year. But frankly, if we're going to become an organisation at Mars who are going to be brilliant, which we want to be at leading the way in the new media and the new digital space, we've got to start now. Well, we've got to start probably 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But we ring-fenced the budget and I contracted that. So I think you have to be really open about the risk. Don't try and obfuscate it. Be open about it and then ring-fence it. And then just don't talk about it too much. And get on and do it.
I think I'm going to change into trainers too now.
Brilliant. Yeah, I would. Any other questions? Oh, we've got one here, Amanda. Oh, Mike's coming down.
Thank you both for being very brave and honest. Michelle, I'd like to ask both of you a question. You're obviously running and being very inspirational to your teams and your brands. How do you both keep yourself fresh and inspirational for the people that you lead?
So for me, I joked earlier about alcohol. There's a wee bit of that, all joking aside. For me, it's surrounding myself with brilliant people. I always talk about radiators and drains. We know the radiators who radiate energy around you and you want to be around and hang out with and you make you feel good. And there's the ones that drain your energy and are dementors, like in the Harry Potter scenario. So for me, it's surrounding myself with radiators and great people. I genuinely believe together we are better. I genuinely believe that, if we get together, we can do some great stuff. And there's just so many brilliant people that have different skills and different talents and different diverse of thought. And so being able to do that, and then also being able to create a space where people feel they can really be themselves, and then together you can create some magic. So that would be for me, is surrounding myself with great people like you.
I'm the opposite. I need to be on my own, so I don't work Mondays.
There's a song in that.
I've changed to a flexible working contract. I only on Mondays only do stuff I absolutely have to do, and I walk. And I love walking, and I've got a dog in the last year, which has been the best thing ever. I need that. I need mental space. I find that constancy exhausting and draining, and I find other people quite draining. Yeah. I love it, but I can't do it constantly. So yeah. I need space. And actually, walking the dog has been walking the dog and watching EastEnders. In my
that's going to go on Twitter.
What can I say? I think you have to just find the things, and it's about the ability. I hardly even watch it, but it's that ability to just mentally, tune down, and those. Yeah, I think those are probably my key things. But making the space, and I say to my team actually, there's this. If you go, I get my best. Not ideas, but the connection. It's again very linked to the conversation this morning. The connections are when I'm out for a walk, actually, and I go, oh, actually, that's, and then I go back into the office and I go, oh, I've got this idea, and they probably hate my walks. But when I'm busy, I can't think. So even though that's my non-working time, and I say to my team, take the day off, go for a walk, because we will benefit from you being, and I don't even call it a day off, just go somewhere else, not sitting at the desk in front of the laptop, kind of. So that, I think, is really important. I think we can, and again, we're very, very privileged that we don't work in we're not nurses or teachers or surgeons who have to physically be present. A lot of us can work in flexible ways, and we should totally embrace that. So.
You've just reminded me of a brilliant guy, Chris Barrows-Brown, who has written lots and lots of books. But one of the things he says, and he does lots of events for me, he says, you don't get your best ideas sitting at your desk. Yeah. And so he does a thing where he does a 7-minute talk it out. It's absolutely brilliant. And you just have to, you walk, and you go walking for 7 minutes, and one of you talks and the other one listens, doesn't interrupt at all, just listens and acknowledges, and then the other one goes. Brilliant. And it's that kind of stuff that you can just, Brilliant. You can get some. So I agree with that. And also watching crap TV. I have to say EastEnders though. I mean, that's
I love it.
Anyway, any other questions? I think our time's up, so I don't want to upset Jeremy. But is there one more question? He's walking over. No, good. We can always talk after as well in the breaks. Okay, cool. Great. Well, brilliant. Well, I had fun. I think hopefully our audience did. Hopefully, learned something. I always learn from you. I'm always inspired by you. So thank you so much. It was good, and I'm sure we're gonna take this conversation even more globally now, aren't we?
We are.
New York next. We're thinking.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone.
So
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gemma and Michelle. Now you get to strut across the scene. This is it.